As this news article shows from WKRN.com, Nashville man sentenced to jail for illegally operating short-term rental property. Now, isn't this a great example of communism? You do not own your property, folks. The government owns your property with the property taxes, and now them saying that people can't do what they please with their own property. Let's look at this story. I'm already angry. Let's look. As it goes into, a Nashville man has been sentenced to jail twice for illegally, quote unquote, operating a short-term rental property. And as it continues, it says, government records show Layton Jones listed his Northwest Nashville home on Airbnb without a permit. Metro Code said Jones was cited and fined, but he continued to operate illegally. Finally, a judge sentenced Jones to 2 days in jail. He appealed, and another judge sentenced Jones to 3 days in jail. He has appealed again. And I quote, "In this case, I think they had operated with the assumption that they'll just pay the fines and keep going," said Metro Code spokesman Sean Brasted, a fellow Nazi, I don't know, whatever, Nazi henchman. By the judge issuing these orders, it really shows there are dramatic consequences for refusing to obey the law when it comes to short-term rental properties. Most people can get a permit depending on where they live if they follow the rules and do the right things. Notice I'm kind of highlighting the more ridiculous claims here. Anyway, as it continues, Metro Code said Jones operated a short-term rental property without a permit. There is no record that he applied for a permit. News 2 spoke with Mr. Jones, who said his house was for sale and then hung up without providing any further clarification. In Nashville, if you operate without a permit and are cited, you cannot apply for one for 3 years. A date has not been set for Jones' next court appearance. This is absolutely absurd, folks. Most of us see that. Most of us realize that. But for those that don't realize that, let's just talk about this for a second. You buy a property. That property is yours. You own that property. Property is one of the most instrumental, most important parts of individual freedom. Life, liberty, property. It's all defended through responsibility of, the individual, of course. But with that said, there's an organized crime racket that is stealing people's money, extorting people, creating rules that they enforce at the point of a gun and then force you into a cage if you disobey. Sounds worse than most organized crime rackets, to be honest. Government has killed hundreds of millions of people over time, but that's another story. The fact that you, on your own property, can't invite people to stay in your house and them give you cash exchange, that's just an exchange. That's capitalism. That's freedom of interactions between 2 individuals, 3 individuals, whatever. It's absurd. I mean, this is fascism. This is a fascism that the left so often throws at the right, and I'll give them this. Many people on the right are unwittingly fascists. They agree with fascist ideals. It's a statist, collectivist complex that both sides are ingrained in. But with that said, we have all these leftists just throwing the word fascist and bigot at everyone. Now, they are supporting something, because this is a very leftist policy overall, that is fascistic and communistic. It's fascio-communistic to tell people that they, on their own property, can't invite someone onto their property, which goes with the same saying as the left actually makes when it comes to the border policies. I'm not allowed to invite my Muslim friend onto my property from Syria without them going through the government. It's funny how people pick and choose their statism. It's funny how people pick and choose their dependency. This is another example of the hypocrisy of both sides. Individuals should be able to invite people on their property. Now, they can't go on other people's private property while getting to that place, but of course public property is a communistic ideal that comes from the planks of communism itself. and is absolutely absurd. You stake out land, you make property, you fight for property, you defend property, you buy property, you sell property, and you allow people on your property as an individual who is making an exchange between two people. And with something like Airbnb, which is replacing much of the hotel industry, which, by the way, the hotel industry is heavily regulated, and it's one of the reasons that the prices are so high, including property tax, interestingly enough. The same with Uber, replacing the taxi cab companies with a massive regulation, massive contracts that they have to go into, where they have to get these licenses that in some cases cost as much as $100,000 to $150,000 per car. Of course their prices are going to be high, and of course these more free market ideas are going to be better, even if government does have some involvement and are regulating it heavily. And we see this whole permit situation with this man in Nashville, Tennessee. This is a joke, folks, and we should be helping this Layton Jones guy. We should be helping him, send him a donation or something, get a hold of this guy, help him out. We need to stand for these people, because if you don't stand for them, no one's going to stand for you. You know the saying. We need to actually be more vocal on this, because it seems like a small little thing, but it's all an incremental frog boil to complete collectivism and control of the populace and dependence of the populace as well. That's what it's all about. Dependence, compliance, laying on your back, being on your knees, begging for permission to do things on your own property, do things that don't hurt anyone, do things that are up to you as an individual, and should not have interference from some organized crime racket. Folks, we need to get on this subject more and be more vocal about it, like I said. So we will continue to cover this issue. We recently covered the issue, I think it was North Carolina, bike laws where you have to license your bike and you'll be pulled over by cops, which pushes up your potential of being beaten and killed by a cop by a lot. And, these henchmen come after you with guns and say, hey, we have a shiny badge, so you're going to jail. We're going to throw you in a cage, and we have the right to kidnap because this badge says so, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just so insanely crazy. And we have allowed this to go so far, and it's so absolutely disgusting that we have allowed this to go this far. Are we slaves? Are we slaves? Ask yourself, are we slaves? Or are we free individuals responsible for ourselves, responsible for our own actions, responsible for our own property outside of this massive organized crime racket that steals our money in order to make us more dependent? It's all under this guise of helping us, but all it is basically pushing us into dependence. Their entire complex only benefits if we are more heavily controlled all the time and more on our knees, more controlled by this massive gang of criminals that have killed more people than anything in the history of mankind, pollute more than anything, steal more than anything, extort more than anything, kidnap more than anything, and then try to white knight their way to the rescue to save us from things that they've created in the first place. It's disgusting. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We will be back at you with much more. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so heavily demonetized and censored by YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. The shadow banning is getting really bad, guys. Also, check our Bitcoin address right here on the screen or in the description below. We really appreciate it. And of course, check us out at the Red Pill Expo 2019. Of course, the great G. Edward Griffin and so many other incredible speakers will be there. Our link for that is below as well. And we cannot forget Mike Maloney's goldsilver.com, which you can also find in the description. One of the greatest market and monetary historians out there. We really encourage everyone to check that out. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.